Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm back with another what I eat in a day. As always, I'm jumping straight in with breakfast, and on this day I made some yogurt bowls with toasted oats and caramelized peach. For this, I first melted around a teaspoon of coconut oil in a flat pan on a medium heat. I just used a pastry brush to spread it out evenly over the pan. Then next I took some jumbo oats to make toasted oats. Just FYI, these need to be jumbo oats, not porridge oats, because porridge oats won't work. I measured out around a cup and placed those in the pan. I was also making 2 breakfasts here, so this was enough for 2 people. Then I just toasted those off for around 10 minutes until they started to turn slightly golden in colour. Next I poured in around half a cup of plant milk. I used Oatly Barista because it's the love of my life. Then I added in around 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and a pinch of salt and just stirred that together and continued cooking it through until the oats had absorbed all of the milk. Next I cut up a peach. I just removed the stone and then I chopped it up into smaller pieces. I used the same pastry brush with the leftover coconut oil to coat a frying pan, and then I just added in the chopped up peach. I turned the peach through the pan to warm it through slightly, and then I drizzled in a good tablespoon of maple syrup and I just turned that through the peach pieces to get them all coated. I continued to cook them until they'd slightly caramelized and the maple syrup had thickened a little with the juice from the peach. I then took some Outbrew Greek style yogurt. This is my absolute favourite at the moment. It's so creamy and thick and literally how I remember Greek yogurt tasting too. And it's also relatively low in sugar compared to some of the other Outbrew yogurts as well. I took a few tablespoons of that. Then I added in my toasted oats and then the maple caramelized peaches. As I said, the maple syrup and the juices from the peach combine and make this kind of even thicker syrup, and it's so good. This has been one of my go-to breakfasts recently in some kind of variation. I've been really enjoying peaches. I think I've shared a similar recipe at some point, but as I mentioned, this yogurt is so rich and creamy. It's sweet but slightly tangy at the same time. The toasted oats I've shared so many times before. They're just such a quick and easy yet different breakfast. I added in the cinnamon for some sweetness, but you could add in ginger or vanilla powder, even some desiccated coconut, and they're amazing. They're slightly chewy and they work with almost anything. And those together with the peaches, which are juicy and sweet and caramelized in the maple syrup, it's all so good together and makes for a really filling breakfast. So that kept me going up until lunchtime. Then for lunch I made some scrambled smoked tofu on toast. I first cooked some mushrooms. These were just baby butter mushrooms, which I halved. I then poured some olive oil in a grill pan and then just brushed it over evenly. I added the mushrooms in and I just cooked those off probably for around 20 minutes or so on a medium heat until they were really nice and golden brown in colour. Then once they were done, I just pushed them to the corner of the pan. This pan is great, by the way, for cooking multiple things at the same time. It's so big. I next added some cherry tomatoes on the vine into the pan and just let those cook. Meanwhile, I prepared the scrambled tofu. I took a block of smoked tofu for this and just roughly broke it up, and then using a fork I mashed it up into more of a scrambled texture. I then added the tofu into the other half of the pan. I took around half a teaspoon of turmeric powder. This is more for colour, but turmeric has so many amazing properties, so I throw it into as many things as I can. I also added in half a teaspoon of garlic granules, half a teaspoon of onion granules, half a teaspoon of paprika, and then seasoned everything in the pan with a little salt and a lot of black pepper. I then turned all of the flavours through the tofu until it was all evenly coloured and coated. Once the tomatoes were cooked, I just took those out and set them aside on a plate. along with the fried mushrooms as well. I then just spread the scrambled tofu out through the pan to soak up all of the tomato and mushroom juices and flavours. And then I turned off the heat and I added in a heaped tablespoon of the Alpro Greek yogurt, a tiny bit of English mustard, but Dijon mustard would also work, and then a quarter of a teaspoon of Kalanamak, which is a black salt. It has quite a sulphurous smell to it, so it basically tastes like egg, but obviously it is a salt, which is why I hardly used any regular salt when I seasoned the tofu. I gave everything a good turn through the pan and just made sure it is all well combined. I find adding the yogurt in makes it even creamier and just kind of brings everything together. I then just toasted some rye bread. My lunches are always the same. It's usually something on rye bread. I first added on the scrambled tofu. I would usually also add on some sliced or mashed avocado onto the toast as well, but I didn't have any. And then I put the grilled cherry tomatoes on the vine on the plate, as well as the fried mushrooms. I also just drizzled over some sriracha. I love this on scrambled tofu. It just gives it a bit of a kick. And then I also added on some fresh dill, which works really nicely with the smoky flavour from the tofu. We make this so often for kind of a brunch at the weekends. It's so quick and easy to do, and it tastes delicious. You can of course use regular tofu for this. I first tried it with smoked tofu because during lockdown I found it really hard to get regular tofu, but it actually turned out great and I've been making it ever since. It reminds me a lot of the flavour of smoked salmon, but with the texture of scrambled egg, so it's almost like smoked salmon and scrambled egg on toast, which I always used to eat before I went vegan. You could have this on an open bagel, you could have it with some baked beans. As I mentioned, avocados also work so well with this too. It's just so tasty and simple and makes for a great breakfast, lunch or brunch. I had some fruit in the afternoon. I have still got a melon obsession. They're just so good at the moment, super sweet and juicy, and I just keep a container of cut up melon in the fridge and snack on that throughout the day. I also cut up some strawberries. Don't worry, the tops don't go to waste. My rabbits love those as a treat. I also drizzled on some choc shot on the strawberries. I've mentioned this before and I'll link it down below. This was the chocolate brownie flavour, and it's like a chocolate fruit syrup made from fruit extract and cocoa. It's amazing for hot chocolates, on pancakes, etc., and I just love it on fruit. If there's one thing I'm bad at, it's probably not eating enough fruit every day, so I'm trying to reach for more fruit snacks when I fancy something, and this was just really simple but really good. Later for dinner, I then made a veg Thai red curry. I first melted a teaspoon of oil in a wok on a medium heat. I then thinly sliced 3 cloves of garlic, added those into the pan, and then I took around a thumb of fresh ginger and I grated that into the pan too. I fried the garlic and the ginger in the oil for a couple of minutes. I then halved the rest of the baby butter mushrooms left over from lunch, and I wanted to cook those off first. So I added those into the pan and fried them until they developed a lovely colour to them. I then roughly sliced a white onion into wedges and I just broke those up in the pan. I also roughly chopped a green bell pepper and also a red bell pepper. I added those into the pan with everything too and just continued to fry it all off. I next took some Thai red curry paste. This is the only shop bought one I tend to use. I think this is only available in Ireland though, sorry guys. It's just made with fresh ingredients, exactly how I'd make my own curry paste. There's no additives or anything. And best of all, there's no fish paste or sauce, which is really common in pre-made curry paste, so always check the ingredients. I usually add around half of the jar of this, and I just turned that through all of the veg to get everything well coated. I also grated in some red chilli. I actually keep chilies in a container in my freezer now so that they don't go bad and get wasted. And yeah, you can just grate them into any dish as and when you like. I then stirred that through, and next I added in a can of full fat coconut milk and also a handful of fresh baby corn. I then gave everything in the pan another good stir through until it was all well mixed together and the sauce had a really lovely red colour to it. We also had this with some chickpea rice. This one is by Mr. Organic and it's their organic chickpea rice. It's literally made from chickpea flour, so it's really rich in protein, and since this was just a vegetable curry, I prefer this over regular rice to get some protein in. It's so tasty and such a delicious alternative to rice. For this, I just filled a pan with boiling water. I measured out a cup of the chickpea rice and added that into the pan along with a pinch of salt and left it to cook for 9 minutes. Although this is a rice alternative, it's more like cooking pasta, so I don't cook it in the same way that I would cook normal rice. While the rice was on, I also trimmed and sliced up a bok choy. I picked a big bunch of fresh coriander from a coriander plant in my kitchen that really needed to be used, and then I just roughly chopped that up. I added the bok choy into the pan next, along with some salt and black pepper. I gave everything a good stir through, and at this point it was looking and smelling incredible. After the 9 minutes when the chickpea rice was cooked, I just drained off the excess water and I divided the rice up between our 2 bowls first. Lastly, I added the chopped coriander to the curry. I also squeezed in the juice of half a lime and gave everything a good final stir through before dishing up the curry alongside the rice, as well as all of that amazing coconutty sauce in the bottom of the pan. I squeezed the juice of the other half of the lime over everything, and then I just finished it with some more fresh chopped coriander scattered over the top. I think we have a Thai green, red or yellow curry at least once a week. Honestly, it's one of my favourite meals, and you can make it with so many different vegetables. Add in some tofu or tempeh. This is just my kind of food. I love all of the flavours together. I use this curry paste as a bit of a shortcut, but I love making my own from scratch too. It's all just so fresh and flavourful. Then for dessert after dinner, I had one of these freaks of nature puddings. This one was the chocolate fudge hot pudding. I think I actually mentioned the sticky toffee pudding one in a recent video. I'm just seriously addicted to these. Obviously they're vegan. They're also gluten-free if you're gluten intolerant. They're made from natural ingredients, and this one is like a chocolate fudge cake with a chocolate fudge sauce on the top. So good. I don't own a microwave, so I just put it in the oven to warm through for 15 minutes. I love that these are in little reusable glass pots too. I also chopped up some more strawberries to put on the top of this once it was done, which was so good with it. It's rich and gooey, chocolatey, but not overly sweet, and as I said, the texture is just like cake. That was my dessert and everything I ate this day. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always I've written up all of the recipes below if you would like to recreate them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!